everyone. Welcome to the Wolfhound Franchising Podcast. I'm Sean Livingston, franchise broker and consultant and member of the Franchise Brokers Association. And today, I'd like to talk about what makes veterans great entrepreneurs.
Veterans are 45% more likely to start their own business over the general population. So that's probably why there are 2 million veteran-owned businesses in the US. That's over 9% of all small businesses. And they employ 5 million Americans and generate over $1 trillion in revenue. That's huge. Veterans make up a major part of the US economy and small business. If you think for per capita, like how many veterans are out there, and just round up the number to 10% of small businesses are veterans. That's a huge piece of the economy right there. 80% of those veterans consider their businesses to be successful, and 35% of veterans started their businesses to supplement their primary income. So that means 35% of them still have regular jobs and they're running a business on the side to create that secondary income. So that makes them even bigger part of the economy. So why are veterans great entrepreneurs? One of the first traits I want to bring up and why veterans make great entrepreneurs is leadership. The military has helped you become a leader. Whether you were in just for 4 years or 20, you become a better leader, or at least know how that leadership works. And that kind of trait goes far and beyond what you can do, especially in business. To be a business owner, you have to be a leader. If you're going to grow your business, that's what you're going to have to do. You're no longer the working nug just taking orders from someone else. You're giving the orders and you're making those things happen. If you have employees, you're going to have to lead them, guide them, teach them, give them reviews, just like an NCOER. Think about all of that. As a platoon sergeant, you could think of that platoon as like your business. You have to supply them, teach them, make sure that they're trained in the proper things that they're doing. Just like a squad, you have a sales team or a crew that's going out to, I don't know, painting company. Think about that. That's how I look at a lot of businesses. Let's say you have a painting company or some type of home service, right? You're sending those crews out for the day, just like in a platoon. In the battlefield of today, the responsibility really, not just as from officers, but especially from the NCO side of things, the responsibility has become so much greater. We just think about the battlefield, 50 to 100 years ago, or even further back, right? The Civil War, the generals were on the ground maneuvering people themselves. So even all the way up to World War I, right? We're fighting in huge elements of like a full regiment. You get down to like World War II, we're fighting in like brigade level to battalion level size elements. You get to Vietnam and they're fighting in, company to platoon size elements. So that responsibility for each person is now getting greater because there's a smaller element. Now, we get to Iraq and Afghanistan, and you might even have a squad or a team going to do that mission. I know in special operations we did. You may have a staff sergeant speaking with the local leader or the tribal person or members of the foreign army. So the responsibility of that is so much greater. and you've learned those skills and to take into a business, because it's the same thing. You know, you've learned how to communicate better, be polite, organize your thoughts. Whether you're talking to an employee or making a sale, talking to a client, building that relationship, you know how to communicate that, and you've learned how to be polite no matter what the cultural differences or or ideas or something, right? But you've really learned how uh, to make those things happen no matter what, and organize your thoughts into how you're going to present yourself or present that sale. It's the same thing that we've done if you're presenting a plan. You know, again, coming back to leadership, we're building a plan. You have a business plan, right? We build plans in the military all the time, and we were supposed to be the epitome of planners. So, which brings me to my one of my next one of my next traits: adaptability. So we know we can adapt. We make those plans, but we know Murphy is always around the corner. It's the same thing in business. We have ebbs and flows. Things change. Um, when I had my franchise, I mean, things will go great for months, and then all of a sudden you have that one month. I remember May was always a low month for whatever reason. It just was. So there could be times where I was dancing on a table, and next thing you know, May hits, and I was like, "What just happened?" It was like a ghost town. People just stopped calling for whatever reason in May. So you have to learn how to adapt and plan for those things. We're used to adaptability. We're used to juggling tasks. You adapt and overcome when those things change, or when you're juggling those tasks. I know we all have dozens of these stories. When you're in the Army for 20 years, you have an endless amount of stories of how things changed along the way, right? That's why we come up with a PACE plan. I used to do the same thing in business. You have your primary, your alternate, your contingency, your emergency, right? So now you're at least planning for 4 different ways. Of course, something will always happen by the end of it and change it to another what if. But at least you had that structure. And most of the time in business, you can make sure you keep that structure, because now you're also in charge of it. Again, you're not that nug anymore taking someone else's orders. But
So the next trait I would say would be hardworking. And there's a lot of different traits that go into all of these. But hardworking, the perseverance, the discipline, results driven mentality that veterans have do very well in being an entrepreneur and starting a business. Being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. You're gonna find yourself working hard at it. It's not always easy. Going into a business, you can start to make it easy, and but especially just starting out, it's going to be a lot of hard work. I mean, I found myself when I first started my business, when I was in a franchise, I was dreaming about it, especially that first year. It's like all you can think about. So the blood, sweat, and tears are going to go into it. But the results-driven ideology that we have is going to make it successful. Just like back to some of the statistics we were talking about earlier, 80% of veterans consider their businesses successful. And there's a reason why, right? It's because they've been hard working at it, and you don't give up. You keep going. You find a way, adapt to it. You lead through it, right? So we're hardworking and determined. those traits, whether you're in, going into a job or finding a business to be in, hardworking is something that franchisors love because they know if they got a veteran that's coming on board as a franchisee, they know that that person is going to be hardworking at it. An example, I had a client that was doing research. We were doing research on several different options, and one of those options was wasn't trash removal, but it was these bins. Anyway, they had these big trucks, and it's a pretty large franchise once you get it going, but one of the franchisees that was a veteran I had my client speak to, a lot of other franchisees went ahead, they went into it more of an investment or more of a semi-absentee model where they were managing, kind of the manager type of thing. This guy went into it and he was driving the truck himself, and especially starting out, he was driving the truck himself. He was doing all that himself, and he stayed in it and grew the business. I mean, he went from starting out with one truck and these bins, they basically drop off at, homes that are, construction sites, all kinds of stuff, right? But he went, I think in the first year, he went from like one truck to 3 trucks. So think about that. That's not only double, it's, basically tripling the size of your business if you've maximized the, what that truck is used for. That one truck doing all the work it's doing. Now you have 2 more doing the same thing in just a year. Now that's again back to hardworking. He's hardworking and he's determined to make that successful, in which case he did. I think he's one of the top franchisees there. Back to being hardworking, some of the stories, I think we all have endless amount of these stories, but I remember back in selection, there's that famous line, you failed to negotiate this obstacle. Would you like to try again? Right? We keep going over, doing it again and again. You don't want to quit. I remember falling off those ropes so many times because I was horrible at rope climbing, but that's all he kept saying to me. You failed to negotiate this obstacle. Would you like to try again? And I knew I had to keep doing it either until I completed the task or he told me to stop. You don't want to have the mentality that you're going to quit. You want to keep going. And that hardworking trait I see in just about every veteran that I meet. We're determined to make it happen. I hope everyone found this information helpful today. And again, if you have any questions or want to look at a business opportunity or franchise, please feel free to reach out and I'd be glad to help. And today I'd like to end with a quote from Mae Jemison. The best way to make dreams come true is to wake up. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.